Story 1: The Last Mile. The loneliness of the Wyoming interstate was a living thing. Earl had been its companion for 30 years, but tonight it felt hostile. It started with the headlights, a pair of pinpricks in his mirror that didn't belong. They were too high, too steady, like the unblinking eyes of a predator. He sped his rig up to 80, they matched him. He slowed to 50, they matched him, never wavering, never gaining, just there. After 2 hours of this psychological torture, they vanished. Earl's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum solo in the silence of the cab. He gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. 3 nights later they returned. This time they were closer, filling his mirrors with a blinding celestial glow. It wasn't a semi, it was a hearse-length black sedan from the 1950s, its grille a chrome grimace. It pulled alongside, and Earl, despite every instinct screaming at him not to look. The driver's window was down, but the space inside was a pocket of absolute blackness, a void that swallowed the light. Then a hand emerged from the darkness, not a human hand, but something long and skeletal with too many joints. It raised a single finger, and pointed not at Earl but at his refrigerated trailer. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded his veins. He floored it, the engine of his rig screaming in protest. The sedan kept pace effortlessly. It swerved, not crashing into him, but driving so close its fender scraped against his door with a sound like a metallic scream. Earl wrestled the wheel, the truck groaning under the strain. He grabbed his CB, his voice a ragged whisper, breaker, breaker, anyone on 19 and being run off the road by a thing near the Rollins exit. A voice answered, but it wasn't a trucker. It was a dry, crackling whisper that seemed to come from inside his own head. The cargo is late. The sedan slammed into his trailer with the force of a battering ram. The world tilted, the trailer jackknifed, the sound of tearing metal, a deafening crescendo. Earl's head smashed against the driver's side window, and a spiderweb of cracks bloomed across the glass. He hung upside down in his seatbelt, the world a blur of pain and screaming brakes. Silence. He came to minutes later. The dawn was a sickly gray. His cab was crushed, but he was alive through the cracked windshield. He saw the black sedan parked 100 feet away, its engine idling. The driver's door opened. The figure that emerged was tall and impossibly thin, dressed in a suit that seemed to be made of shadow. It moved with a stuttering stop-motion gait, as if reality itself was struggling to render it. It walked to the back of his trailer, its long fingers curling around the handle with a sound like a tomb door opening. It heaved the refrigerated door wide. A blast of frigid air poured out, carrying with it the faint, sweet smell of decay. The figure stood there silhouetted against the wall of frost-covered cargo. Then it reached inside and pulled something free. It was a human body, frozen solid, its face locked in a silent scream. The figure held it up for a moment like a trophy, then let it clatter to the asphalt. It reached in for another and another. They weren't frozen goods, they were the product. The figure turned its head, a motion that sounded like grinding stones, and looked directly at Earl, its face a smooth, featureless oval of pale skin. It raised a hand and pointed a long, bony finger at him. It wasn't a threat, it was an invoice. He was the next delivery. It started walking toward his crumpled cab, its footsteps unnaturally loud in the morning stillness. Earl fumbled for his seatbelt release, but his hands were numb with fear. The figure stopped at his broken window and peered inside. A mouth, a simple wet slit, opened in the smooth expanse of its face. "Deliveries here," it whispered, its voice the same dry crackle from the CB. Then its long skeletal fingers began to peel away the shattered glass, one piece at a time. Story 2: The Welcoming Committee. The Millers bought their dream home in Canyon Creek, a suburban paradise where every lawn was a perfect green carpet, and every house a soothing shade of beige. The welcome was immediate and overwhelming. A parade of neighbors led by the HOA president David arrived with casseroles and smiles so bright they felt aggressive. "We're one big family here," David said, his teeth impossibly white. "We just have one rule: harmony. Anything that disrupts the harmony gets corrected." The first correction was a note on the door: "Your lawn is 7 inches too long, please rectify." The next day their prized rose bushes were sheared to identical stumpy nubs. In the middle of the night, Sarah found a note taped to the bathroom mirror: "That shade of yellow is not in harmony with Canyon Creek." Paranoia became their unwelcome roommate. Blinds snapped shut when they looked out. Conversations died when they walked past. One evening their 6-year-old daughter came inside crying. The man across the street, she sobbed, "He just stared at me and smiled, he didn't blink." That night Tom found their golden retriever Buster lying on the welcome mat. He wasn't just dead, he had been meticulously groomed, his fur brushed, his collar polished. He was positioned perfectly, a grotesque sentinel. A note was pinned to his collar: "Disorder has been removed." The grief curdled into pure terror. They packed that night, a frantic, silent operation. As Tom opened the front door to flee into the pre-dawn darkness, he froze. The entire neighborhood was standing on their lawn, dozens of figures silhouetted in the streetlights, perfectly still and perfectly silent. They weren't holding weapons, they were just watching, their faces blank, expectant. David stepped forward from the crowd. "You can't leave," he said, his voice devoid of its earlier cheerfulness. "It was flat cold. You've seen the disharmony. You have to be corrected." The crowd began to move not as a mob, but with a single unified purpose, their footsteps in unnerving sync. Sarah screamed as the front door was pulled from her grasp. The last thing Tom saw was David's smile, wide and empty, as the tide of perfect neighbors washed over them. 6 months later, a new family moved in. They were greeted by a parade of perfect smiles and casseroles. David welcomed them, his teeth as white as ever. Standing beside him, nodding along with a serene, vacant expression, were Tom and Sarah Miller. Their clothes were immaculate, their hair perfectly styled. They had been corrected, they were in harmony now. And as the new family's children played on the lawn, Tom and Sarah watched them, their smiles never wavering, their eyes dead. Story 3: Trail's End. Chloe lived for the solitude of the trail, but the Great Smoky Mountains felt different today. The air was heavy, and an unnatural silence had fallen over the woods. No birdsong, no chittering squirrels, just the crunch of her boots. Then she saw it, a small, expertly built cairn of rocks in the middle of the path. She stepped around it. 10 minutes later she saw another, and another. They were leading her off the marked trail down an overgrown spur she hadn't noticed before. A cold knot of dread tightened in her gut. She should turn back, but a morbid curiosity, a feeling she would later curse, pulled her forward. The spur led deeper into the woods, the canopy thickening into a perpetual twilight. That's when she saw it, a single dirty child's sneaker half buried in the mud. The cold dread was now a shard of ice in her heart. She turned to run, but her foot caught on a root, sending her sprawling. As she pushed herself up, her eyes fell on a small hidden alcove under a rock ledge. Inside was a makeshift shelter of branches and tarps, and from the darkness she heard a sound that froze the blood in her veins, the faint broken whimper of a child. "Hello," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you okay?" The whimpering stopped a moment later. A small voice replied, "He's coming, you have to hide." "Who's coming?" Chloe asked, crawling toward the shelter. "The man who makes the piles," the voice sobbed. Suddenly a sharp whistle cut through the silence from the direction of the main trail. It was close. Chloe scrambled backward away from the shelter, and sprinted into the woods, not caring about direction, just needing to escape. She burst through a thicket of thorns, her arms and face stinging, and tumbled back onto the main trail. She could see the parking lot through the trees. Safety. She ran, her lungs burning, not daring to look back. She threw herself into her car, locked the doors, and collapsed against the steering wheel, gasping for air. After a minute she looked up, her eyes meeting the rearview mirror. Sitting in the back seat was a small, filthy child, its face caked with dirt, its eyes wide with terror. It slowly raised a grimy finger, and pointed not at Chloe but at her driver's side window. Chloe turned her head. Standing outside her window was a tall, gaunt man holding a rusty axe. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the child in the back seat, a look of profound disappointment on his face. He raised the axe and tapped it gently on the glass. "You know you're not supposed to leave the yard," he said, his voice a deceptively calm, paternal rumble. The child in the back seat began to cry. The man smiled, a slow, terrible stretching of his lips. "Don't worry," he said to Chloe, his eyes finally meeting hers. "Shall learn, and so will you." Story 4: The Graveyard Shift. Marcus hated the graveyard shift at the gas station off I-70. The night was dragging a thick soup of boredom and stale coffee. Around 3 a.m. the bell chimed. An old man in a tweed suit and bowler hat walked in, moving with a strange, stilted gait. "Pardon me, young man," he rasped, "might you have any Prince Albert tobacco?" "No, sir," Marcus said, annoyed. "We don't sell tobacco." The man nodded slowly. "I see, and a pack of matches." Marcus slid a book of matches across the counter. The man placed a tarnished silver dollar on the counter, and turned to leave. Marcus watched him go, but when he looked out the window there was no car. The man just vanished into the darkness. An hour later the bell chimed again. It was the same old man. "Might you have any Prince Albert tobacco?" he asked in the exact same tone. "Dude, what is this?" Marcus said, his unease blooming into fear. The man ignored him, placing another silver dollar on the counter. He turned and walked toward the door. Marcus watched the security monitor, his heart pounding on the screen. The man reached the door, and then simply dissolved into a cloud of static. The bell chimed a third time. Marcus looked up. The old man was there, a third silver dollar in his hand. But this time he wasn't alone. Standing behind him was an identical old man, and another, a silent, twitching congregation filling the aisle. "Might you have any Prince Albert tobacco?" they all asked in perfect rasping unison. Marcus dove under the counter, fumbling for his phone. He heard the shuffling of old shoes all around him. He squeezed his eyes shut, whispering, "This isn't real, this isn't real." Then a voice right next to his ear whispered, "Oh, but it is." He opened his eyes. The old men were kneeling around him, their faces inches from his. Their skin was like old parchment, and their eyes were milky white cataracts. One of them smiled, and its lips crumbled away like dust, revealing blackened teeth and a gaping hole. "We've been waiting for a new attendant," one of them rasped, its voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "The last one, he didn't work out." One of them reached out a skeletal hand and touched Marcus' forehead. His skin felt impossibly cold. Marcus tried to scream, but his throat was frozen. The last thing he saw was the bowler hat of the nearest old man tipping forward to cover his face as the world dissolved into a suffocating, endless darkness. The sun rose. A new clerk, a young woman named Jessica, came in for the morning shift. She found the store empty. On the counter was a neat stack of 4 tarnished silver dollars. She shrugged and pocketed them. As the day wore on, she kept feeling a strange cold spot in the aisle, and sometimes out of the corner of her eye she thought she saw a bowler hat sitting on an empty shelf, but every time she looked it was gone. Story 5: The Last Broadcast. Leo, the abandoned America vlogger, felt a thrill as he stepped inside the Blackwood Sanitarium. "All right guys," he whispered to his GoPro, "let's find some ghosts." The place was a masterpiece of decay. He explored the usual spots, building the tension for his audience. Then in a long dark hallway, he saw a door slightly ajar. He pushed it open. It was a seclusion room. In the center of the floor was a strange spiraling symbol drawn in charcoal, and next to it a single modern-looking hiking boot. His heart skipped a beat. It looked brand new. That's when he heard it, a soft, wet, tearing sound from down the hall. It wasn't an animal, it was rhythmic, methodical. "Hello," he called out, his voice a pathetic squeak. The tearing sound stopped, then a low guttural humming began, closer this time. Pure primal terror seized him. He turned and ran, his flashlight beam cutting a frantic path through the darkness. He didn't look back. He burst out of the hospital and sprinted for his car, fumbling with the keys. He got in, locked the doors, and sat there, his heart hammering. He looked in the rearview mirror to check his face. Sitting in the back seat was a figure. It was tall and emaciated, its limbs bent at angles that defied biology. Its skin was pale and waxy, stretched tight over its bones. It had no hair, no nose, just a gaping circular mouth that was humming the same tune from the hospital. Leo screamed a raw guttural sound. The creature tilted its head, a gesture of unnerving curiosity, and slowly raised a long bony finger. It didn't touch him. It pointed to the GoPro still recording on his dashboard. He drove like a madman, swerving all over the road, the creatures humming a constant maddening drone in his ear. He finally screeched to a halt in his apartment building's garage and fled, leaving the camera behind. Safe in his apartment, he double-bolted the door and collapsed onto the floor. He was alive after an hour. His curiosity warred with his terror. He had to know. He went back to the garage. The car was empty. The GoPro was still on the dashboard, recording. He took it inside, his hand shaking, and connected it to his laptop. He skipped to the end of the video. It showed him screaming and driving wildly, but then he saw something he hadn't seen in his panic. Whenever he glanced at the rearview mirror, the creature's face wasn't there. It was only visible to the camera, a digital ghost only technology could perceive. He kept watching. The video ended with him abandoning the car in the garage, but the recording didn't stop for 5 minutes. The camera just sat there, pointed at the empty garage. Then the driver's side door slowly opened. The creature slid into the driver's seat. It looked directly into the GoPro lens, its gaping mouth opened. But this time a voice came out, a perfect electronic replication of Leo's own. "Hey guys, thanks for watching," it said in Leo's cheerful vlogger voice. "Don't forget to like and subscribe. Next week we're exploring my new apartment. I think you're really going to enjoy it." The video cut to black. A moment later, a new video titled "My Apartment Tour" appeared on his channel, already uploaded. The thumbnail was a picture of Leo's front door taken from the inside.